So what if you could eat real, actual meat, but without the farm, without the slaughter, and without that massive environmental footprint? Today, we are diving deep into what could be a massive revolution in how we make our food. And it all centers around this one pioneering company in India that got its start from a really personal and honestly pretty unexpected question. Now, this is a quote from the founder of Biokraft Foods. And let's be honest, that is probably not what you'd expect to hear from someone who's building the future of meat, right? He's a lifelong vegetarian, but here's the twist. It wasn't really by choice. His whole issue was never with meat itself, but with how we get it, the sourcing. And that one simple question, why should I be deprived? That personal frustration is what kicked off this whole journey to find a better way. It led a biotechnologist to take his skills and apply them to a problem he's lived with his whole life, to create a solution that could completely change how we think about meat. And that is the story of Biokraft Foods. To really get what this technology is all about, we have to start with the person who created it. We got to understand his unique point of view. Because this isn't a story that started in some corporate boardroom. No, this one started with a really personal, deeply held belief.
This origin story is just fascinating. The founder comes from a traditional Marwari family where being a vegetarian is just the way it is. But for him, it wasn't about rejecting meat. It was about rejecting the whole industrial process behind it. He saw the problem, not as the food on the plate, but the entire supply chain that gets it there. And luckily for him, with his background in biotech, he realized, hey, maybe I can just build a new one.
So, how in the world do you go from a personal mission to actually creating meat without an animal? Let's dig into how that idea got turned into a real scientific and business plan.
Okay, first, a real quick primer, just in case you're new to this. Cultivated meat. It isn't a meat substitute. We're talking about real animal meat. The whole idea is you take a small sample of animal cells and then you grow them in a clean, controlled environment. Think of it like a brewery for meat, giving them all the nutrients they need to multiply and form muscle tissue. The same stuff we call meat.
But let's be real. This is a massively complex field. The science is it's huge. You've got cell lines, growth media, bioreactors, food formulation. So how does a small startup even begin to tackle something this big without just getting totally overwhelmed?
Well, their strategy is actually brilliantly simple. It's all about laser focus. Instead of trying to reinvent every single part of the process, they decided, you know what, we're going to be an end product manufacturer. They put all their energy into their unique expertise, like the bioink that gives the meat its structure and the final recipe, and then they collaborate with partners for the other complicated stuff. And that lets them move incredibly fast. And you can hear it right from the founder himself. Focus was everything. In a brand new industry where you could try to do it all, they made a very deliberate choice about what they should do to get a real product in front of people as quickly as possible. All right, so having a product is one thing, but getting it onto people's plates, that's a whole other ballgame. So what's the actual plan to bring this stuff to the market? Their strategy really breaks down into 3 clear steps. First, they're starting small and targeted. They're proving the concept with hotels and restaurants, getting the product into the hands of actual chefs at tasting events to get that crucial, honest feedback. Then once the model is working, they'll build out their own brand and manufacturing to really control the story. But the end game, the big vision, is much bigger. It's to scale the entire industry by licensing their core tech out to other companies. I absolutely love these analogies because they make the strategy so easy to understand. They want to be the tech inside. They control the key ingredients and the brand, kind of like how Pepsi controls its secret formula or how Domino's controls its supply chain, but they let other partners handle the massive scale-up of manufacturing. It's smart.
And in terms of geography, the plan is to kick things off in India and then expand across the Asia-Pacific region. Now, why there? Well, they believe the APAC market is actually more open to these new food products and, maybe more importantly, has a much faster regulatory cycle than you see in the West.
Of course, no revolution is ever that easy. For all of its promise, the road ahead for cultivated meat is absolutely filled with huge challenges, some that you'd expect, and some that are a bit of a surprise. So first, let's just quickly recap the big promise here. This technology is being pitched as a massive win for sustainability. You've got studies showing huge reductions in emissions and water use. It's also made in a sterile environment, and the nutritional profile is designed to be right on par with conventional meat, without making any wild health claims they can't back up yet.
But here's where things get complicated. While the big picture goal is green, the day-to-day reality of the process has its own environmental challenge, and the founder's super open about this.
Cell culture creates a lot of single-use plastic waste just to keep everything sterile. It's a problem the whole industry is wrestling with, and right now, there isn't a great solution. Yet.
And yeah, the challenges definitely don't stop there. There are a bunch of other big hurdles to clear. On the technical side, there's a big push to move away from controversial ingredients like fetal bovine serum, which is a growth medium that comes from calf fetuses. It's a slow and really difficult process. For consumers, you've got this whole perception battle against scary-sounding terms like lab-grown. On the regulatory side, they're basically creating the rule book as they go in India. And of course, the big one, the price at the end of the day has to compete with regular meat.
So, with all this incredible promise on one side, and all these very real challenges on the other, what does Biokraft's journey really tell us about the future of food?
So, what are the big takeaways here? Well, first, that a really personal problem can sometimes spark a truly global solution. Second, that in a brand new, complicated field, a focused strategy is way more powerful than trying to do everything at once. We're also reminded that every new technology, no matter how promising, creates its own unique set of problems that need to be solved. And finally, that winning people over requires creative ideas, like the tasting events Biokraft is running with chefs to get that direct, hands-on feedback.
And that really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? The journey from one person's dilemma to a potential dinner plate is happening right now. The hurdles are really high for sure, but the vision is crystal clear. So the real question that's left for all of us is, are we ready for it?